Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have an interesting game to share with you from round 5 of the Grenke Chess Festival 2025. This is a freestyle event, open event. On the white end, Magnus Carlsen playing against Victor Mikhalevski. All right, this is start position 630. All right, with this arrangement, not too far off from regular chess, a handful of familiar posts. There is one unprotected pawn, but it isn't exploitable. There's no quick knight move that will target h2 or h7 for that matter. Also, there is not a quick pawn move and some diagonal attack towards h2 with the knight here occupying b8. This is really the piece that sticks out to me with this arrangement. What are we doing with it? Well, in the game, it's simple enough. The knight goes to g3, g3, g6 squares. Keep in mind if you have this idea to maybe, fianchetto. This is going to significantly impact the cornered knight. You play in that way, the knight doesn't have g3. You're telling your opponent you're eventually going to play with your f-pawn one way or another just to grant your knight access to f2, give it some air. I guess there is an arrangement, a very aggressive start to this game, a committal start. You could go with g4 and then tuck the knight behind the pawn, and in that way the bishop still has some room there to fianchetto. But to play on move 1 here, g4, again, very committal, a couple weaknesses created right away. Much more standard approach in this game. What we see here is one e4, a queen pawn opening, I guess we could call it that. Bad bishops outside of the pawn chain here. Not long off from now, we're going to be looking at a position very similar to just regular chess game. So let's see what this looks like. Some stability given to the queen. Now knight jump to d5. Black is already ready to go. Castles to the g file. Knight g3, d6, bishop e3. There we go with castles, and we get a bishop exchange. This was Carlsen's good bishop being exchanged for the very active bad bishop. Follow up a4, holding up any b5 moves, some stability for the minor pieces here. Knight g6, queen e3. This has an influence on the structure, queen e3, an influence on the structure or the development of this bishop. What am I talking about? Well, bishop deployed now to e6. Carlsen initiates the exchange, and black here has to take with the pawn, take on another case of doubled pawns. He knew what he was, of course, signing up for and playing in this way. If you take with the queen, you drop a pawn now. So he takes with the pawn. Liability or an asset. Here's a positive note. In taking on this doubled pawn here, you control the knight. Forget about the f5 square. This open file isn't really so much a positive, or the half open file. This eventual g2 to e4 construction, very solid for white. Here is a question. There's a big intersection square for black in this position, d4. How do you get a knight there? You really can't get a knight there. There doesn't exist a path into that dream outpost. Because of these pawns right here, there is no path for a knight. All the other squares we look at are controlled by pawns. Okay, are you able to get a knight here? No, that's not working either. So you pretty much can't get to that d4 square. So it's tricky here for black. Follow up f3, knight a6, regrouping here for Carlsen right around the corner. There's knight d2. It's also, this last move paves the way for g3 to restrict the knight. Now, follow up from here, black plays c4. pitches a pawn for some activity. This is a top move. Now, if you don't play in this way, this sacrifice is almost played out of necessity. If you don't play c4, let's make a move that appears to be decent. Half open file for the rook. What we're going to see is that white is now there in time to hold up any thoughts of a pawn sacrifice to disrupt white's structure. Knight's cool there, controlling c4. White has slow and steady moves that can be played that will continually improve his position, whereas black is sort of running out of ways to improve his side of the board. What am I talking about exactly? Well, I'm struggling here to find a productive move already for black. What do you do? I don't know. Do you have this idea to double up here? Maybe there's some accident that can occur on d3. You may have to go for something like that. But this slow, steady progress that I'm referring to here for white, you could go with g3, just mapping out some moves, g3, h4. There could then be this idea to play h5, and who knows what from there. I mean, you could go castles, put a rook on the d file, maybe combating any sacrifice on d3. Once the knight is not defending e5, knight c4, pinpointing this pawn could be difficult maybe for black to defend in some cases. And there is also an idea of playing f4. And maybe instead of going to c4 with the knight goes to f3. This is a way, there are, I believe, multiple ways for white to make slow, steady progress, and black is sort of out of ways to do similar. So the play here by black is pawn sacrifice. c4 on board, d takes c, rook check, knight blocks, and now queen goes to b4. How to defend the pawn? Carlsen doesn't castle. He steps aside here with the king. He wants to keep the rook on a1, defending against any pressure here on a4. So right around the corner for black is knight to c5, and that could be an issue. So just putting this on, if Carlsen castled here, how exactly are you defending this pawn? Keep in mind, a move that would not be available here for white is b3, because there's this knight in d3 jump, which cuts off the knight's defense, or the queen's defense of the knight. This is a winning idea here. Queen takes, knight to follow. Position collapses. So no castles here. The king just hangs a left. One little step. You're also out of a pin. Knight c5. Restriction of the knight. Black goes for the doubling. Rook d1. Doubled up for black. And now some rook lift here for Carlsen. Rook a3. Paving the way for knight b3. a5. Knight b3 sure enough. And from here we have a stunning move. Blunder? Brilliancy? Okay, follow up here. We have queen takes knight. Now you would almost think, is this some, I don't know, is this some mouse slip? Was maybe if it was played online, did black really intend on playing knight takes knight? No, this was about 20 minutes here spent calculating queen takes knight played. What is going on here? Well, let's see. Pawn takes queen. A lot of doubled up or tripled up pawns in this game. Okay, a pawn trio here for Carlsen. A queen sacrifice for what exactly? Well, a rook and knight. King b2 follows. And now knight takes knight. How do you recapture here on b3? Let me throw this to you as a pop quiz. What move would you play here? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, two moves would lose. So the move you have to play here, Carlsen's move is rook captures knight. If you take with the king, you're going to run into trouble. There would be a rook check on b1, and then black doubles up on the back rank. And what are you doing about check and next up checkmate? These pawns are in the way here for the king in this case. The king is not able to slip away, does not have access to any c-file squares. Black will soon control all the squares here on the A and B files. So, taking with the king here, forget about it. Also, taking with the pawn, forget about it. You're going to have to give the queen right back after this check, and black's going to be playing up a piece. Also, this rook is looking pretty silly in the resulting position. The way to play it here, Carlsen's move, he takes with the rook. Now we have rook h1. It's still a bit scary here for white. Next up, this same idea is right around the corner. Mating ideas, because of these tripled pawns interfering with the king. Now there is a way out. In Mikhalevski's calculations, something was clearly missed here. Carlsen plays c5. And if black now goes in for rook here, he has time to produce a square in the c file. c4, check. The king is able to hide here on c3 just in the nick of time. Those tripled pawns get out of the king's way. Now, that is not the only way you can play it. It is an efficient approach for white. Another way out of the mating net would be to play king a2 in this position and meet this move with rook to b2 and be prepared to meet this check with king b3. And the rook assists here in defending against the follow-up mate. But this would be an awkward arrangement to have the rook sort of cut out of the game. What's more efficient is Carlsen's approach here, meeting rook h1 with c5. At this point, black goes after this point here, knowing that this is just going to be met with c4 and the king escapes. So the try at this stage is with rook takes h2. And from here, rook takes b7. This rook, this is step one of this rook going on a rampage. Okay, black's target now is this sensitive c2 pawn. Rook c7. Rook takes c2. King b3. And now h6. You see what just happened there? h6 controls g5. h6 restricts the white queen. And now there is some sort of issue here with the white queen. How exactly do you rescue this queen? Right around the corner, black has this idea to now perpetually attack the white queen. Rook takes c6 is played. Follow up rook b2. Eventually, you have to go to the c4 square. So if black wants to keep putting the rook on a2 and b2, you want to get out of the perpetual, you have to step foot on c4. It's king c4 straight away. And now from here we see rook b to e2. Where do you go with the queen? Where is a safe square? Here, here, here. Wherever you go, this rook will target your queen along this second rank. How Carlsen plays it from here, he immediately sacrifices his queen. And that's the only way to really make progress here. If you play to d3, we get this attack. b1, this attack. No matter where the queen goes, this rook will continually be there to bother the queen. It's an interesting arrangement. This king is not allowing some escape route through this diagonal. Interesting position. Carlsen here, in order to win, you have to, just going back to this game position here, in order to win, you have to give the queen up. Okay, now Carlsen here is down the piece, but these pieces here are out of position. He swipes another pawn. He has a passer, and black is just not in position to successfully track down this pawn in time. In fact, he's going to have another passed pawn shortly. 3 passed pawns, and he's going after another pawn here, the A pawn. That's a 4th pawn versus a knight. King E7. Only one move here that wins. Carlsen finds it. It is rook to D5. Doesn't allow the king to step foot here and put pressure on the pawn. This rook is cutting off the king here, and also eyes up this important 7th rank square. What do you try here? Black goes hunting for the F pawn. We get the check. The A pawn is just way too good in this position. A knight's nightmare past A pawn or H pawn. A6. Follow up, knight D8. We're going to see why that doesn't work. Well, really nothing will work here for black. For instance, if black tried to get behind the pawn, that's not going to work because there's this idea of rook B7. And next up, rook B8 with check, followed up with promotion. The only way to interfere with that would maybe be with knight D8 here, but in this case, you could already push this pawn. So knight takes rook, you're getting a queen and another queen to follow. So that's just not going to work. How this game ends, after knight D8, we have rook captures knight. Black resigns. King takes rook. There's no stopping the A pawn. Rook is out of position. So an interesting try there by black, going all the way back to this queen sacrifice. Not quite working. Close, but close is not good enough in this game. There was clearly something missed here. There was a way you could go wrong at this moment. How exactly to recapture with the knight? No. Yes, that was the way. Being prepared to next meet this idea of doubling up with C4 and then king to C3. Black at this point shifting the attention to a different point here, C2. Yeah, clearly something missed in black's calculation there, but close. In this case, not good enough for this game. Anyhow, what are your thoughts with this one? Feel free, as usual, to leave any feedback to this video in the comments section below. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care.